Hello, this is the Dr. Nisi Abraham. Today we will discuss the fluid and electrolyte balance. I will separate acid-base balance into a different presentation because it is a large topic involving buffers, lungs, kidneys, etc. So we focusing on fluid and electrolyte. Fluid and electrolyte balance, which is essential for that homeostasis. So when you look at the cells, when you see that cells is what? Plasma membrane around it. It's a selective permeable membrane. It allows certain things to go in and out. Larger things, larger molecule cannot pass through the plasma membrane. But ions, sodium, potassium, calcium, things will go in and out. Some other things we're going to study, they go in and out in the presence of that ATP, energy required. So also the plasma membrane inside is a negative charge, outside be positive charge. So water will flow both the direction. This is outside the cell is called extracellular fluid. This one intracellular fluid. Make sure you write it down. Extracellular fluid. We can go over the body fluids. Almost approximately 60% of the adult's body weight is water. So making water the most abundant substance in the body. And also every cell, we seen the cell structure, nuclear cell structure. It's require a stable fluid environment to perform normal function. So also fluid balance required to maintaining the correct amount of distribution of water between different body of compartments. So one cells to another, or that tissues, different structures, maybe that blood vessels. See, it has to maintain then also electrolyte balance refers to maintaining the correct concentration of charged ions in the body fluid. So here we see that the concentration of solute is determined that osmolality, concentration of the solute. If you water inside the water, maybe that is sodium chloride or sugar, whatever inside, those are what? Solutes. How much it is, that's determine the concentration of that water. So when you add more into that maybe salt water, that makes what? Dilute. Then if you are taking water out from that solution, that's become more concentrated. So here one of few things I want to explain here. Also the intracellular environment contain high concentration of inside the cell. You see that potassium, magnesium, then what else? Phosphate ions, etc. These ions are essential for cellular activities. For example, why we using these ions? So maybe ATP production or protein synthesis. So when you look at that, see that extracellular fluid. Extracellular fluid has a plasma and interstitial fluid. That means everything outside the cell. If you look at the cell structure, this is another cell. So this is enlarging this portion. Cell. In between the cell, that is what? Extracellular space. Also, if your blood vessels is going through that, that's also fluid inside blood. Blood with plasma. Plasma is a fluid part of that blood. So this one and anything outside the cell is called extracellular space, where that extracellular fluid are located. One is here is a plasma. Then here is a interstitial fluid. So enlarging this, you would be able to see this is a capillaries. Capillaries are small blood vessels. So coming from the branch of the big blood vessel. So branch of big blood vessels, a network of small blood vessels we call the capillaries. What is going through the capillaries? Plasma. So that is extracellular fluid. Also in between the cells, the space, there is extracellular fluid. But inside the cell is, the fluid inside the cell is intracellular fluid. That is called cytoplasm. Inside the cell, what do we see? Cytoplasm. That is intracellular. That's the cytoplasm. Almost 70%. 30% is coming from extracellular fluid. So we talking about regulation of intracellular fluid. You remember what is intracellular fluid? Inside the cell. That is cytoplasm. So the body must carefully regulate that intracellular fluid volume, because cells cannot function normally if they become too swollen. Think about the cells. This is a normal size. From that to an enlarging this or shrinking this. That's not a normal cases. Or too dehydrated. This is a dehydrated, or they become swollen. So the main fact is controlling intracellular fluid movement, going in and going out. That is a osmosis. Osmosis is actually a diffusion. Things will go from higher concentration to lower concentration. Osmosis is a diffusion, but water molecule move from higher concentration to lower concentration. For example, if I say, if a extracellular sodium concentration increases, for here extracellular Na sodium concentration Na plus, concentration increases, what extracellular fluid become more concentrated. So because a lot of sodium, so this extracellular the concentration of extracellular fluid become what more concentrated. So what happened, water will move out of the cell because of more water here at this point, so it will move out of the space. As a result, what happened? Like this, dehydration is shrinking. So the reverse is if your sodium level is low in the extracellular fluid, what happens? Space, water will move inside. Then that means what? Soul in that cell. Both scenario is what? Is not a normal cases. So some things will move in and out by that transport protein because plasma cannot take it in and out. So they use what? ATP for that purpose. That's uneven distribution. So this plasma membrane is what? Selective permeable membrane. Certain things will go in and out. So fluid input. So the fluid balance depends on maintaining a balance between water entering the body and water leaving the body. We just seen that. The body receives water from three major sources. Our body. Mainly how we get water. Drinking fluid, food, then water is metabolic water. One is that cellular respiration happens, that water is a byproduct. So that's the way we get our water for our daily purpose. Primary sources of fluid input are food and beverage, cellular respiration, that is we talk 90% should be coming from intake. So we need depends on the our size and use 1.5 to 3 liter per day. So we know cellular respiration. Make sure you go over those things we study when we study about cells, ANP1, also general biology class. So when nutrients such as glucose, carbohydrate, lipids, protein, we can make different ways broken down to produce what? ATP. Then water generate as a byproduct. So one of the thing, the normally in case the amount of water entering the body should equal the amount of water leaving the body. Fluid output. So water leave the body through different pathways. Think about when you read this slide, how we lose water. Kidney is one of them. That's a urine, sweat, respiratory loss. You cannot see, but when you breathe out, not only air, also water will you losing water. Then fecal loss. These are the main ways we're going to lose water. Kidneys almost 61%, evaporation 35%, feces 4% loss of digestive tract. Mainly that one is the main is kidney is the one mainly control that over fluid output. Then now we're going to see that the regulation of fluid balance. When you look generally, the body uses three major systems to regulate fluid balance: nervous system regulation, hormonal regulation, kidney regulation. If you look at the nervous system, so we thirst, we get thirsty, we drinking the water. So then also one of the other way can regulate by ADH, antidiuretic hormone, produced by that that pituitary gland. In hypothalamus, we study those things in endocrine system. Hypothalamus, contains special cells called osmoreceptors. Osmoreceptors. So these receptors detect changes in blood concentration. So fluid concentration go through that blood vessels. So the blood become more concentrated. That means a lot of solutes inside. You become more thirsty. So when you thirsty, what happens? You drinking more water. Also release ADH. Another one is this one. We're talking about the hormone regulation. So the main hormones involved in that hormonal regulations and the fluid balance, antidiuretic hormone, ADH. This what they do, this is a promote water concentration by increasing water reabsorption in kidney. That means in your homeostasis, you have less water in your system. This will increase the water reabsorption. You need more water. Then another one is aldosterone. This what happen will promote what? A sodium reabsorption. This one what? Reabsorption. Then other one, atrial. Atrial, when you hear what? Heart. Natriuretic ANP. This will opposite to what happened these two. These two act when your body, your system has a lack of water. This one, if you have too much water, this will promote water loss. When that blood volume is too high. The volume is too high means what? Your water content is high. Effect of blood pressure on thirst. Our body also monitor blood pressure BP to regulate fluid intake. For example, think about your blood pressure is decreasing, going down. Blood pressure is going down. That means what? Dehydration. Or it can be sometimes accidents happen, blood loss. Or you running in summer outside, so it can be excessive sweating. Good. Any of these things can cause what? Decrease in blood pressure because you lose water. Kidney detect reduced blood flow. Kidney can figure out that. And activate so that the blood pressure is low. When your blood pressure is low, concentration osmolality is going to be what? Increasing. So that's here. The kidney figure out that. The kidney detect that, they figure out that reduce the blood flow and activate what is the renin angiotensin aldosterone system. One of the question from third exam urinary system, when we study about that, we ask in this question. Renin angiotensin aldosterone system. This leads to produce angiotensin 2. Why this angiotensin is very important? That leads to vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction means make sure you break it down these words. It's give you definition itself. Vaso means what? Vessels. Constriction means what? Shrinking. So when you think about this blood vessel normally this size, then its vasoconstriction is become that this narrow. Which one has a more blood pressure? This one from going from here to here, things increase a lot of blood pressure increase. So the increase the blood pressure, when you increasing, that's the way it can what? Increase up. So this will produce that renin angiotensin aldosterone system trigger when that blood pressure is low. So this way vasoconstriction bring it back to that increasing the blood pressure. Another way, stimulation of thirst. Encourage drinking water. See, motion too. You feel you want to drink more water. Then also it will stimulate that aldosterone release. When aldosterone release, what happen? The increase the sodium and water retention. See here, first one is what? Blood pressure osmolality, most important. Hypothalamus, this is a thalamus. hypothalamus is the B region. This is a pituitary gland should be here. So hypothalamus, there is what? Osmoreceptors. Salt concentration, they detect concentration, feel thirsty. So you're drinking water. Other one is the one arterial juxtaglomerular apparatus baroreceptors. Juxtaglomerular apparatus you see in that nephron. They have baroreceptors. Not a osmos, the baroreceptors in the arteries. So they detect what? Decrease in blood pressure. So these receptors send the signal to that thirst center in the hypothalamus. They're sending that information to that hypothalamus. Detect the drop in blood pressure and release the enzyme renin. What the renin does, renin activate this renin angiotensin aldosterone system, leads to production to angiotensin 2. Like I said, what they do, they go to angiotensin 2, make sure you know that aldosterone, what they do, ADH I mentioned. So the result what? Increase of blood, increase of water intake. So dry mouth, saliva causes dry mouth of sensory receptors send the signal to hypothalamus to thirst increases. Then stomach distension, the drinking water stretches the stomach, stretches the receptor signal to hypothalamus, the thirst decreases, preventing excessive water intake. Water is good for our system, also can be toxic. Anything more than supposed to be taking, that's a toxic. Everything has a standard for how much you need it for our system. We talking about sodium. Sodium is the most abundant extracellular electrolyte. This ion play major role in regulating body fluid volume. Sodium chloride, the table salt. When you eat a lot of French fries, you get thirsty. Any salty food. This is a dominant like extracellular cation. Cation because it's what? Positive charge. This will exceed osmotic pressure 90 to 95%. So the main functions of sodium, when you look at that, why we need sodium, why this is very important, why is it dominant? This maintaining extracellular fluid volume. So if you look at the cell, outside the cell has more sodium. That's maintaining that sodium, the positive sign outside the plasma membrane. Also regulating blood pressure. Then also supporting nerve impulse transmission. Nervous system, when we talk about, we've seen that sodium and potassium is very important for that generating that impulse and action potential. Then also it's important for muscle contraction. The kidneys regulate sodium balance by controlling sodium reabsorption and sodium excretion. Kidneys do what? Filtration, reabsorption, secretion. When sodium level are low, the body activates a mechanism that conserve sodium. When sodium level are high, the body increases sodium excretion. Like I said, this one, aldosterone. So increase sodium absorption in the kidney. ADH stimulate both the water reabsorption in the kidney and thirst. ADH is, think about antidiuretic hormone. Against that dehydration. Thus conservation of that hormone. Sodium and excretion if you have too much sodium in our system. Chloride ions. Chloride is at prominent anion in the extracellular fluid. They has an inhibitory effect on some neurons and skeletal muscle fibers. So if you have imbalance, what is it called? Hyper and hypo. Hypo means lacking, low. Hyper is more. Chloremia, hypercholemia. That's a high blood level of that chloride. This one is a low blood level of chloride. So it can be, both of them can cause issues. You cannot have too much or too little. Other one is a potassium is another ion. K plus anion. Cation. Anything positive is cation. Thus establishing membrane potential in electrically excitable cells. So when you look at the cell, more sodium outside the cell, inside the cell is more potassium. Remember this one, if you are lacking or you have too much potassium. So here potassium level is increased. You can see this is what standard. It's going up, down. If it's not going up, cannot have too much. They disturb what? Homeostasis. The stimulate that receptors of the adrenal cortex. This adrenal gland above the kidney. Cortical region, this is a light color structure outside. So they produce what? Aldosterone secretion. This aldosterone is increased. What happened? Increase aldosterone what? Increase the rate of potassium secretion from the effectors. The distal convoluted tubule, this is a glomerulus. This is a proximal convoluted tubule closer to that. Distal is away from that, this area. Then collecting duct over here. distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct of kidney into the urine. They secrete into the urine. If it's too much, then what happens? It will pass through the urine. Here's the homeostatic. So it is going down. Think about it's going down and balance that, restore the homeostasis. If it's at potassium level is decreased, so they will, what happen? Main thing is inhibit the production of aldosterone. So when your aldosterone level is low, potassium secretion from the effectors and distal convoluted tubule is going to be low, then it's not passing through that urine. So that's the way they can what? Restore that potassium level in your system. Calcium is another ion. So mainly for exocytosis. What is exocytosis? Exo means what? Taking out from the cell. Anything going out from the cell, that is what? Exocytosis. Calcium is very important for that muscle contraction. Cardiac muscle contraction, action potential. It's regulated by kidney. So also you can digestive tract, how much absorption can absorb those calcium. And the bone is very important. We study those things in ANP1. Bones, what they do? They store calcium. When you lack in calcium, resorption, breaking down the bone and release calcium into blood vessels. Can see that imbalance of calcium, what happened? Hypocalcemia, hypercalcemia. Like we said, calcium is very important. So increase the rate of vitamin D3 formation, need for absorption of calcium. So if you lack in vitamin D3, a lot of women is lacking vitamin D3, so you can take that supplement so you can get that calcium level. Also vitamin D can be active when you go out and exposed to the sun. Other one is the ion is a phosphate ion. That's the most mainly tied to calcium, phosphate, calcium. The phospholipid, form of phospholipid you see in DNA, RNA, ATP. That's a structural structure part of that DNA and RNA and ATP structure. So you can read this one, what happen if it's lacking or if it's high. Magnesium is another ion. Intracellular fluid, less than 1% of extracellular fluid, you see that. This is what we explaining before, hormonal mechanism regulating body fluid composition. So we talk about a few hormones, three of the main things mechanism regulating this relationship. We see that renin, angiotensin, aldosterone, hormone mechanism, or atrial natriuretic hormone or antidiuretic hormone mechanism. All three things. Blood pressure on sodium and water resorption kidney. So So this is kidney, lungs, liver, blood vessel, adrenal gland above the kidneys should be like this structure. Decreased blood pressure cause increased renin secretion by kidney. If your blood pressure is low, less blood is coming through that, so you can detect that blood pressure level. So the kidney, they produce what? Renin. Renin is to the liver. So this angiotensinogen produced by the liver is an enzyme, ensinogen. This convert angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. Here that angiotensin converting enzyme here, that's the one converting that angiotensin 1 to 2. There is a, make sure you know that enzyme name, angiotensin converting enzyme, which is convert that angiotensin 1 to 2. This is a 2 is active form of enzyme. So any time you see that angiotensinogen, gen means what? It's a new. So at the original form, it was there. So then it has to only have to but make it to that active form. This is not active form, so it needs some process to make it active form. Then it will go through the blood. So what is that? It's going to blood. It's affecting blood vessels, vasoconstriction. Then once it will increase the blood pressure and blood body. Then adrenal cortex secrete what? Cortex secrete. Right now you remember aldosterone. So that will what? Decrease the urine production. That means what? They take that sodium and water absorption. One effect of blood pressure in the right atrium of sodium and water excretion. So when think about the heart structure, this one, this is a thing, this is right side, left side atrium, right atrium. So there is some hormone, atrial natriuretic hormone is released that helps to what? Increasing the excretion of sodium and water. Sodium. So wherever that sodium goes, water follows that. Increase that hormone ANH and increase that urine volume and decrease the blood pressure. Osmolality and blood pressure on water reabsorption in kidney. Low blood pressure stimulate what? ADH secretion that promote that reabsorption of water, form the distal convoluted tubule. So here osmoreceptors on the hypothalamus detect that osmotic pressure. So baroreceptors in the aortic arch, carotid sinuses detect decreased blood pressure. The posterior pituitary gland, not anterior, posterior pituitary, increase the production of what? Antidiuretic hormone that stimulate that blood vessels and kidney. Blood vessels, what they do? Vasoconstriction, blood pressure increasing. Here, the kidney that also increase the volume of the blood, also increase the reabsorption of water to maintaining that osmolality, the solutes in blood or water. So this one is showing how this we can maintain. That's whatever we say, that's the same thing, you can read it. We look at the summary. This one you can see, this is only for that sodium regulation actually. How that sodium regulated by that by our system. Like I said, sodium is most abundant. Either it can be by what? ADH, RAS and ANH. To regulate sodium in our body system. Also it can regulate blood pressure. So it's full ADH is hypothalamus is producing that ADH, that posterior pituitary, then going to that this is a kidney tubules, affecting kidney tubules to what? Reabsorb that sodium and water. Here RAS, they mainly controlling increase the blood pressure. If you're detecting, this is, you can see that glomerulus here, filtrate should be go through this. Distal convoluted will come around. This is a afferent arteriole. Afferent arteriole, you can see the diameter is a thinner diameter, thicker diameter. It's a decrease renin production, blood pressure increase, angiotensin 2 decreasing, aldosterone decreasing. So what? Blood pressure decreasing, that is affected. Decreases sodium, you don't need that much sodium. Volume, you don't need it because it's too much blood pressure. So all these things will happen if you have too much blood pressure in your system. If your blood pressure is low, think about sometimes your blood pressure is low, what happened? Everything is going up. We need all this stuff to make this type of scenario. Then if you look at the last one, that is what happened. They affecting your heart. It's increasing the blood pressure. It's detected by that receptors on the atrium. They increasing that ANH, that will decrease all these things. If blood pressure is decreases, this one will decrease, this will happen. So you can look at this chart, is very good. Everything is in one place. This is ADH and antidiuretic hormone, which is what? Blood pressure. If you have increasing low in ADH, if you are decreasing the blood pressure, you need more. So you can reabsorb water and increase the blood volume. You can look all this stuff. So how this endocrine system connected to that, connected to urinary system and how they balancing that fluid and electrolyte. We study endocrine system earlier. We also study some of the hormones we study produced by the hypothalamus, pituitary glands, then all the other glands around that your system. So now we're looking at that how they are connected. So in order to understand this chapter, you have to make sure understand that endocrine system, urinary system, how they work together. So endocrine system produce hormones, we know that they act as a chemical messengers, while the urinary system, the structure called one of the structures is kidneys, respond to these hormones by adjusting water and electrolyte level in the blood. That's a kidney does. So what is the main goal of this interaction is to maintain homeostasis, include normal blood volume, maintaining that blood volume, and what is the blood pressure, proper electrolyte concentration, stable osmotic balance, then also adequate amount of hydration of the cells. These all things are very important. So like we said, different hormones may helps for that. Make sure you remember that memory tips. Make sure you look at those things. Wherever what salt go, water goes with that. Okay. If we can pull the sodium, water will come along with that. Okay, if you have any question, please let me know. Please share and understand. If you have anything you want more, just put the comments. Okay, you all have a great day.